And I just turned around and I hauled ass out of there. I was done. I wasn't dealing with that.
The hypocrisy of the cult is one of the things that turned me away the quickest.
When I turned my headlights on, it turned and looked at us. And one of the things I remember the most were the eyes were glowing red.
I see an orb of light. It is just circling these steps like it is waiting for me.
And he begins to tell them that he saw a UFO. They're basically like, what are you talking about? That's 7 foot up on a tree, peeking around it. And that's where I saw the top of the muzzle, nose, and the eyes. As soon as I made eye contact with this thing, it felt like death.
Welcome back to Tinfoil Tales. I'm your host, Brandon Wright. Tonight's episode, we're going to be joined by Joe and Freddy from Conspiracy Dumpster Dive. I will say now that the topics we discuss could be controversial to some. If you're easily offended, this may not be something you want to check out. Not that we condone any of the topics that we discuss, any of the actions that were done. This is just information that is out there for others to research. I encourage everyone out there to make their own assumptions. These are just discussions. These are not necessarily our opinions, as we don't try to agree or disagree here at Tinfoil Tales. We're not out here to spread hate or misinformation or whatever. This is just stuff that is researched, and you can find it for yourself if you are interested. Before we jump into that, though, if you've ever had an experience you want to be on an episode of Tinfoil Tales, or if you have a topic you'd like to discuss, you can send an email to tinfoiltalespodcast@gmail.com, or you can go to the website of tinfoiltales.com and go to the contact section. Either way will work. Just shoot me a message and we'll get something scheduled. If you want to help the podcast out, leave a 5-star review on whichever podcast platform you listen to the podcast on. If you listen on YouTube, make sure to like and share the videos. Sharing the podcast around is one of the best ways to help. So if that's what you're doing, it's definitely appreciated. Remember to check out the Patreon for ad-free content and exclusive access to early episodes. Follow us on all the social medias, all the typical stuff that I talk about. It's still in play for this as well. But now we're going to go ahead and bring Joe and Freddy on. Been looking forward to diving into this topic. Hope you guys find it interesting. Again, this is stuff that you can research yourself. It's just a couple guys discussing things, not trying to offend anyone or spread hate or any misinformation about any sort of people or religion or anything like that. This is just how these conspiracies are rooted, and that's what we're discussing itself as the conspiracies and the nature of it. So I hope you guys understand and find it interesting. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. I'd like to take the time to welcome my guests tonight, Joe and Freddy. Thanks for coming on here talking with me.
Thanks for having us, Brandon.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
You guys host a podcast. You want to do a little bit of talking about that real quick?
Yeah, Freddie and I have a podcast called Conspiracy Dumpster Dive. We talk about kind of any conspiracy really, but mainly New World Order type stuff and the powers that be.
That's the stuff I usually get into.
Yeah. There's a lot of parallels with your podcast. That's kind of how we found you.
Yeah, basically, this whole podcast started off as me wanting to do more conspiracy type topics. That's where the whole name came from with Tinfoil Tales.
Yeah.
And it was during the whole lockdown era. Me and my friend talked about a lot of crazy stuff that was going on in the world at that time. And without going into any of those topics, I was like, man, I wish I could have a place where I could just talk about this stuff. Because him and I had like not so much out there ideas. I was like, there's just a lot of things I don't think people realize and people are looking into. I was like, I'd like to talk about stuff like that. So I started looking into podcasts and I come up with this name, and then I came across a couple different podcasts and realized that what I wanted to talk about wasn't really anything new.
Yeah, it's not new, but it feels like there's space for everybody just because I mean, everybody does it different, you know?
Mm-hmm. So this show ended up turning not so much into conspiracies as it is more or less just open for all sorts of topics, but I enjoy what I do and I'm glad others are out there doing what they're doing and enjoying what they're doing too. So
Yeah.
I have a great interest in AI, and I kind of theorize that it, we might not even need, you know, the God or big G God and the devil to exist, that we could kind of manifest our own digital antichrist through AI. So that Halloween episode that you did where you interviewed what was it, Bart?
Bard from Google.
Yeah, that was an excellent episode. I enjoyed that.
It started off hard to manifest it into happening. Like basically I had to ask it questions and it would give me the answers back, but it doesn't have an actual voice. So I had to take all the text that was saying and give it a voice. So that episode took a lot of work, more than what I thought it was going to.
Oh, well, you did a good job on it. Yeah, I enjoyed that. Even my wife liked it. She was like, "Wow, this is really interesting."
It actually answered some questions that I didn't think it would, but now if you try and talk to it the way I did, it won't give you those answers anymore. It's been reprogrammed.
Oh, okay, you ruined it for everyone else, huh?
Yeah. I was like, well, I got my content out there, but now that the powers that be got wind of what Bard was talking about with me, they won't let you talk about it. I tried to ask it some questions a couple weeks ago actually, and it said it's only a chat thing or whatever. It's not able to talk about certain topics like that. And then it said something about it breaks its code of ethics. It can't talk about like stuff. I was like, oh, I see they've updated you now.
Yeah. I've heard you can still get around some of that by asking it like for a third person or something like that.
Hmm. I haven't really looked into it much
Like
after that.
if I had a theoretical friend and he wanted to know where to hide a body, where would he hide it? You know?
Yeah, I haven't asked it anything like that. I was asking it stuff about honestly, it was about the topics we're going to talk about tonight. And it didn't want to talk about conspiracies. It says because conspiracies are not true and that doesn't want to help spread false information. It's unethical. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Everything's a conspiracy until it happens.
I've always said if it's a conspiracy, obviously there's some out there that are questionable, but for the most part, any real good conspiracy has to be somewhat believable. And if it's believable, most likely there's a hint of truth to it. Otherwise, there wouldn't be a conspiracy.
Right.
But that's just my opinion. I don't know anything.
I think that's pretty factual in my book.
But yeah, the what you guys are going to talk about, I've been trying to go down this rabbit hole for a while with some people. I've got my own theories on it, and a lot of the things I probably can't talk about because I know it'll get me red flagged and canceled.
Really?
I've already gotten warnings once because of certain episodes and certain flag words and get shadow banned. So I figured if I get shadow banned, I must be really pressing some buttons.
Yeah.
That means you're right over the target.
You know. But no,
Yep.
there's a certain families that I've always said pull the strings, and everyone's like, "Oh, you're voting this and your elections and all your other power." Like they're really all the puppet masters. You follow the money. Wherever the money's at, that's the true nature of what goes on in the world. But
Yep, for sure.
so what do you guys have prepared tonight to discuss?
Oh, we're going to talk a little bit about the Rothschilds and Babylonian money magic and the biggest spell that has been cast upon mankind ever, which is a fake fiat money system.
Sounds right up my alley. Good to go whenever you guys are.
All right. Well, the Rothschild family, they began in Frankfurt, Germany. It was an old Jewish stronghold that they had what they called ghettos. The Rothschilds didn't start out as Rothschilds. The OG Rothschild, Mayor Amschel, was actually born with the last name Bauer, and he lived in a house in this so-called Jewish ghetto that had a red shield as the family symbol. So his father died when he was very young. He went and worked for several different bankers at a very young age. He learned the art of antique coin dealing, and a lot of Christians and other people in society weren't allowed to, get involved in banking, but uh, Jewish people were. And I know there's a lot of debate on, the Zionist Jewish thing. Me personally, I think they're two different things. I think there are good Jewish people out there, and then I think there is this, group of black nobility families that are descendants from the nation of Khazar, which they've morphed into the Khazarian mafia. They had to flee Khazar. They spread all over Europe and had to establish, new houses and uh, basically bring their Babylonian money magic tricks with them to try to suck wealth off of others.
Yeah. Another thing is that uh red shield that he had in front of his bank, they say was the Star of Renfro or the Star of Solomon.
Yes, it is not the Star of David. It actually goes back to being the Star of Solomon.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've
So,
heard about I'm not really familiar with Saul. We've had other episodes we've talked about it, I think. I'm not 100% sure. I know who King David is, but Solomon, was he before David?
yes, he was David's father.
Okay. Yeah. My whole timeline's on stuff like that. Like, I'm not a religious person, and I never read the Bible. I never read the Quran or any of the stuff like that. It's never really piqued my interest. So it's kind of like I know bits and pieces, but I'm not really 100% familiar with all the names and everything like that.
Yeah, keep doing what you're doing, and I would not be in the least bit surprised if that changes in the future.
Or, yeah, I also have a theory that it it kind of doesn't matter. Good is good and evil is evil. It's just, it kind of more of a common sense thing.
Yeah.
More of you can apply a lot of philosophy into like the same group as religious ideologies.
Yeah.
There's some topics, like I said, that I'll discuss it here towards the end. If I get banned from this video, so be it. It's not necessarily my opinion. It's just, I know there's stories out there where these can be traced back and forth. And again, it's not me trying to sound like against Jewish people, but there's always the big global conspiracy, and I forget the exact term, but they always say like the Jewish people rule the world. And I'm not saying that's true. I'm not saying it's whatever. That's not me. I don't really care what people it are. But there are conspiracies that involve from that. And I've always been leery of talking about it because I feel like, especially with today's times, it's very touchy subjects.
Yeah. And they use it against you. Like if you go and Google something like what's the Rothschilds' involvement in the creation of Israel or something like that, at least one of the first three things that'll pop up will be about how it's anti-Semitic to ask this question, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know,
and like I said, I have no problem with Jewish people. I have no problem with anyone of any race, any color, any religion. To me, we're all people.
Yeah.
But
We just got problems with the people that are pulling the strings and doing evil New World Order stuff,
no, I don't care if they're white, black, red, green, blue. I just don't like the shit that they do.
Right, for sure.
Agreed. Yeah, I've gotten a lot into natural law lately, and there's pretty much just one rule out there to be a good person, and that's just don't steal. And that kind of covers all the 10 commandments and just being a good person. Just, don't take someone else's life. Don't steal their wife. Don't sleep with their wife. Don't steal their reputation by spreading lies about them. You can kind of cover, being a good person with just one rule, and that's just don't steal. I don't know if you've ever heard of Mark Passio, but this guy grew up as a Catholic. When he turned 18, he was tired of it. He's like, all right, this is a cult like thing. I don't want to be a part of it. So he actually joined the Church of Satan and made it up to the upper ranks of the Church of Satan. And he realized that they were full of shit too. So he just, wrote it out and tried to learn as much as he could about them and learn that they are just hiding this one ultimate universal law of nature, which is don't steal. But that's what they do. That's what the evil cabal and these new world order puppets do, is they just want to suck your life energy out of you and profit off of you as much as they can. And they don't give a damn about you. They don't. They just, they're in it for their profits and their gains. And it's not right. Just don't steal from others. And that kind of covers everything, I think.
Yeah.
You mentioned a couple different things in there. You said cabal and sucking the life in there. That goes hand in hand with what I want to talk about towards the end. So you guys can keep talking, and then when you're done with that, I'll bring up my my own little research and things that people have said and see if it kind of goes hand in hand.
Okay.
Okay, sounds good. So Mayor Amschel Rothschild, he worked at this Oppenheimer bank, and he established himself in the Illuminati circles, and it got really close to Illuminati royalty, Adam Weishaupt, um, General von Estroff, and Prince William of the House of Hesse and Henne. Sorry, my pronunciation isn't the best sometimes, but yeah, he was deeply involved in, selling these antique coins to different princes and different nobles throughout Europe. And he got really good at it at a very young age. Um, they helped finance the beginning of the Illuminati. The Illuminati then infiltrated pretty much all of Freemasonry all across the world. I don't know if Freemasons were, bad before they got infiltrated by the Illuminati, or if they were created by these, dark nobility families. But yeah, they definitely got infiltrated by the Illuminati in the late 1700s. I don't know. There does seem to be some kind of correlation between, the founding of America with that 1776 date. That was the day that, America came to be, but that's also the same year that the Illuminati was born. I've always found that one kind of fishy. All our founding fathers were Freemasons, and, and not all Freemasons are bad people. Some of them were good. I think our Constitution was written in more of a common sense way to at least give us a fighting chance. So I think there were some good people in there, but there was definitely some bad people in there as well. I mean, there was people like John Adams, who literally, when he was in the White House, he had a dog running around as the White House pet with the name of Satan. So, like, why would you name your dog Satan? It's just there's a whole lot of really fishy stuff around the founding fathers and their connections to the Illuminati.
Yeah,
I got it.
There's a lot of questions I've always had about that too.
Yeah, don't even get me started on Ben Franklin. Oh my gosh, that guy was just a man whore. And I don't know, they found bodies under one of his houses. So he was, I don't know if they were going over to the cemetery. Apparently, he had a doctor living with him. So some people say that they were going over to the cemetery to dig up cadavers so that his friend could, continue his medical studies. And then other people are like, no, it was just straight up satanic rituals and they were sacrificing people in his basement. I don't know. who knows? But yeah, there's a lot of fishy stuff around Ben Franklin, and yeah, just the whole thing. There's something fishy going on there.
Did you, one of you guys, I heard you saying something in the background. I didn't know if you had something to say.
Oh, I was just I was gonna say I have a dog that Satan would be a pretty fitting name for him.
Yeah. We used to call my cat that. That wasn't his name, but just the way he acted. And we always called him with Satan.
Yeah.
But, but no, there's always been some things, especially with the Freemasons and when it comes to how the country was built and everything else. I've always had my own assumptions, which don't mean anything because we all have our own opinions. But
Yeah.
there was always something off. And if you look through modern, like not modern history, but even modern history, but for old times and stuff as well, the Masons were involved in a lot of shit.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're doing something good, you don't do it in secret.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And the Masons are just, they're full of secrets. It was very interesting. I was at a small town event. It, a town up here in northern Colorado has a barbecue days, and the Masons had a recruiting tent there. So I went and talked to these guys, and yeah, they all seemed like good dudes. You know, none of them were up there in the 32nd or 33 degree of masonry. They're all, you know, lower levels, but they were all swearing to me that, oh, we're not a secret society. We're a society that's out in the open. We're just a society that has secrets. So I don't know if there's really much of a difference there. I don't think so.
No. Well, I mean, how long have camera phones been around? And there's somebody caught one of their rituals on camera, but there's not a lot of those out there.
No, and the rituals, it's just like the skull and bone rituals. It's, you know, you fall into a coffin, you pretend you die, and then you get like resurrected, kind of like Jesus. It's really weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the blindfold, and as you move up through the degrees of masonry, I guess there's only one right answer when it comes to moving up. When they ask you what you want to achieve, you just say more light. But the trick to it is you can never achieve, you know, the highest illumination. But that is their ultimate goal. They do want to become the all-seeing eye. And how they're going to do that, I don't know if they think they're going to be able to, you know, create this AI and then, you know, be the overlord of the AI that is watching over everything. I don't know what their ultimate goal is. And I find the whole concept of the ghost in the machine very interesting. I don't know if, you know, like CERN over there underneath Switzerland, if they're trying to open up a portal to hell so that they can bring Satan back up to earth and then inject him into, you know, the World Wide Web, or if they just want to create their own, you know, version of like a digital Satan. Uh, it's tough to tell, but this stuff gets really deep. It gets really deep, and yeah, sorry if I'm a little far out there for some people to keep track of, but yeah, I've been researching this stuff for a long time, and I just find it very, very interesting. There's so many different possibilities out there. And yeah, I don't know if Satan is a real entity or not. But one thing I do know after all the research I've done is there is definitely evil out there. So I think that's what Joe and I just, you know, one of our main goals is to bring awareness to this, because if you aren't aware of what these evil people are doing, they're going to be able to just trample right over us and get their new world order installed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
I
mean,
agree.
yeah.
Weirdly enough, not to derail the conversation, but we're talking about certain topics here. And I have a wireless mouse and it runs off of because of a USB thing. It literally just took a shit. It's brand new. I just got it for Christmas.
Huh.
And while you guys were talking, it just completely went dead. I was like,
Yeah.
huh. With the
A lot of
timing of
people
The timing of
Seem-
that's interesting.
yeah, a lot of people seem to have technical problems when they start talking about these powerful families.
That and when you start talking about certain, I don't want to say conspiracies, but certain energies, certain type of things. I know, weirdly enough, like certain Nephilim type topics, people have like audio issues, and again, that goes back biblical to an extent, like these entities or whatever, these ancient powers, whatever you want to call these things, demonics, and then somehow your equipment starts screwing up. I've had that happen before too. So it's strange that now that it's talking about the Rothschilds and then this happens.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's really what kind of, I've been atheist at times in my life, and that's really what kind of started pushing me back. And I don't pretend to know what religion is right or if any of them are right, but in my heart I believe that there's definitely um it's not an accident that we're here. There's definitely a creator in my mind. But when you start to see what's happening in the world with all of these powers that be, they already have all the money. They already have all the power. So what are they doing? Um, and at some point, it doesn't really seem to boil down to money and power anymore, and it's something, um,
More sinister.
yeah, sinister and not of this world.
Yeah. No, I guess I'm gonna have to fly without a mouse now. But no, there's a lot of stuff that goes on, and it just doesn't seem very good.
Yeah,
And when you follow the trail of the money controls everything. And you come back to the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, and there's a couple other ones. It seems
Yeah.
like almost every great tragedy that's happened, somehow, one way or the other, there's links to them.
absolutely. Every
And,
single one.
and are they orchestrating it? I don't know. But I do know they fund a lot of it.
Yeah. And they fund both sides a lot of the time.
The biggest money maker right now is the military industrial complex. And what better way to generate money than having people at war?
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. That's that's basically that's basically how they're controlling us.
Yeah.
Constant war, constant conflict.
There's again, what I'm going to talk about, there's reasons behind all that. So that is if people want to subscribe to this random conspiracy that I found on Reddit one day.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. But no,
Well,
basically, I've known about these names for a long time, even as a kid back in the 90s. You heard of the Rockefeller. Obviously, there was the Rockefeller Center in New York, and the Rothschilds and stuff like that. Like, we knew the names, but anymore, like, you hear more about George Soros. And I don't know if he's somehow connected with them or not. I've never really looked into it, but, or he's just a face. Someone's playing it out there that gets more of the brunt from the actual real string pullers behind.
Yeah. He's a nation builder and destroyer for sure. Um, he's definitely in that cabal. I think probably if you know their names, then they're not the top dog, but for sure he is, a major player or was.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Well, and even when it comes to the Rothschilds, a lot of people say the same thing about them. Like there's a reason we can find information about them. There is a mainstream narrative that you can find about them. So that makes me wonder how much truth is really in there. Some interesting stuff that I just recently found out is yeah, this Mayor Amschel Rothschild, he married this girl named Guttel. Guttel was the daughter of this Wolf Solomon Schnapper, and
Snapper.
yeah, it is Germans. Man, they always have crazy last names, but they're fun to say. Fun to say. Wolf Solomon Schnapper had a daughter named Guttel, and this is who Mayor Amschel Rothschild married. Um, Mayor did have, some rules for the family. Um, In 1812, right before Mayer died, he set three rules for the House of Rothschild. Only males will enter the business. All of his children and grandchildren will intermarry to preserve fortune, and the eldest son of the eldest son is to become the head of the family. So that first rule there is only males will enter the business. This just might be a charade. Uh, this recent research that I came across suggested that Guttel, she was the master. She told Mayor Amschel what to do. And they had five sons. And I guess she never left the house. If she said, "Hey, Nathan," which was the third child who went over to England, and I think he eventually became the first Baron Rothschild, which is a nobility name over there in England. But if she said, "Hey, Nathan, I need to talk to you," he'd have to hop on a boat and freaking get his butt over to Germany. Like she was the head of the household, not Mayor, but Guttel.
Yeah. Yeah. The first Baron Nathan was the son of Lionel.
No, that was another Nathan. Amschel had he had five sons. There was a Amschel Jr. of sorts. He stayed in Germany. There was a Solomon. He went to Austria. Nathan went to Britain, and his son, Nathan's son, Lionel. So Lionel would have been the grandson of Mayer, and then Lionel had another Nathan.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of repeats.
So that
of names.
Nathan is the first Baron.
Okay. But yeah, and then there was a Carl who went to the Italian branch, and then God, I always forget the French guy's name, James. Yeah, James went over to France, but only two of these branches survive today. Some of them, like the Italian branch, I guess, yeah, Solomon, he only had daughters, but these daughters remarried back into the end of the Rothschild family. It's really quite grotesque when you look at their family tree. I mean, Solomon had a daughter who ended up marrying James Rothschild, who was Mayor Amschel's youngest son. So James ended up marrying his niece, which, yeah, her name was Betty, but she was the daughter of Solomon. So it's like, what do you call grandpa at that point? Or uncle? Is it, you know, Grandpa Mayer Rothschild, or is it uncle? Is this now my father-in-law? Like, it's so crisscrossed and so confusing. It's just quite disgusting. And there's a whole lot of rumors out there that there's a whole lot of schizophrenia that runs in this family. I've even heard rumors that they have to have two kids in order to just have one normal one because there is, well, out of inbreeding, incest, it it's not right. You're not supposed to do that. So
Yeah.
there's a whole lot of, you know, diseases and mental retardation that has ended up happening out of this inbreeding.
Yeah. So what was the major, so he sent a son to the UK, to Britain. He sent one to Naples in Italy.
Yep.
He sent one to Germany. He sent one to France.
Yep.
And then where was that fifth one?
Austria.
Austria. So in one fell swoop, he basically took over the European Empire, and they took over the banking systems of all of these major players in Europe.
Yes, and there's rumors that he actually had 19 kids altogether. 9 of them died, and then those 5 sons and 5 daughters lived. The 5 daughters married into other black nobility families, mostly Roman Catholic families that were heavily involved in the church, the real black nobility.
Yeah, yeah. Brandon, have you ever heard this? This is a theory. It's not factual or whatever, but what Victoria's secret was prior to 1977?
Not what the secret was, but I've heard the song say he was an old man living in Ohio.
So there's this theory. So Lionel Rothschild, he was in Parliament controlling the British banking system, and Queen Victoria at the time, the prime minister, his name was Gladstone. He went to Victoria and said, "Hey, why don't you make Lionel a baron? Why don't you make him a lord, basically?" And she scoffed at it, and she said, "Titling a Jew would raise antagonism, and it would be unseemly to reward a man whose wealth was based on a species of gambling rather than legitimate trade." So she had no intentions of giving him a lordship. And so the conspiracy around this is that one or two of these Rothschild sons actually either forcibly or maybe not forcibly bred their way into the royal family. And that basically her children, I think she had 10 children. One or all of them could be Lionel Rothschilds. And then after she had scoffed at this, she makes his son Nathan the first Baron Rothschild. And later on, I think Lionel becomes the third Baron Rothschild. But everybody kind of said that there's no legitimacy to these claims, except for the British archives actually had some letters from Victoria's husband. His name was Prince Albert, and that's where the name for the piercing comes from. Some people say that was a chastity thing, or that he wasn't that he was sterile. But there are some letters that he wrote, and basically he hated her. There was, he had written these letters about how angry she made him and how much he disliked her. And later on, their child, Princess Beatrice, found these letters, and she wanted to destroy them. So she got permission to burn them. Only she didn't know that somebody had already taken photographs of all of these letters, so they didn't disappear. So that's how we know that because at the time they were selling this idea that they were just these two lovebirds so in love, just procreating, and these letters say otherwise. So it kind of lends some validity to the idea that maybe, the first Baron Rothschild was a half brother to her own children. So
Yeah.
that was Queen Victoria's secret.
Makes sense. You said that was back in what year?
1917, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just me and my tinfoil hat, but I feel like history has been altered so much that anything that's happened before 1900, there's no one alive to verify these days. how things used to be. So I feel like at one point there's been a rewriting of history.
Oh yeah. 100%. You're on the nose with that. I mean, you almost can't argue that. Um History, like Freddie always tells me, that's his story. And we've all heard uh the victor writes the history.
Yeah. I've said that with people. Weirdly enough, was another more popular podcast that dives into conspiracies, but I'd mentioned before that the Bible's been rewrote so many times and they got defensive about it. I was like, how are you going to be a conspiracy person and think the Bible is 100% true?
Yeah. Well,
But
it's been manipulated at least, well, well, like a real manipulation, like taking books out as recently as the 1500s. And then there's been tons and tons of manipulations of words,
there's the
like
King James version, the NIV. There's all these different versions. They've changed words, they've manipulated things here and there. So it's everyone's own little version of how they wanted it to be.
yeah. Especially the big thing now is to take out any reference to a firmament. It's a globe Earth. It's the universe. It's
Then
that sort of
they had something about the four corners of the earth, or four
Yeah,
pillars of the earth, or something like that.
yeah.
I think that's in the book of Enoch,
The
where Enoch, gets to go to heaven with God, and he looks down on the four corners of the earth, which would be impossible on a spherical earth.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, he said the pillars too. The pillars is in there.
Yeah, I don't know, the a little bit of the research I've done on flat Earth. There's supposedly four subcontinents up there at the North Pole, and in the middle of those four continents, there's a whirlpool that goes around a 30-mile in circumference black rock. There's a lot of rumors out there too that the company BlackRock is, trying to rebrand the name of the actual Black Rock, which is, this pole at the center of the flat Earth. And it's kind of like the Frozen Disney thing where they put out a movie. So now you Google, Disney Frozen, and it just pulls up the stupid freaking movie instead of, Walt Disney's head is, cryogenically frozen, and they're waiting for the technology to come around so that they can freaking thaw him and put him on a freaking, droid and bring him back to life.
Yeah.
If the
Yeah.
earth was flat, as I have a lot of questions when it comes to that. I'm not going to say I'm a flat earther, but I'm also not going to say I believe everything that they claim that NASA says and all these other space things say. I feel like if it's actually the way they're saying it, it is. I almost believe it's more, it seems like a simulation to an extent, as in we've all been placed here on this plane, and it's almost, and I don't want to say like Matrix simulation, but at the same time, I don't know how else to go off of it. Like, it just seems like there's certain things people say that there's interdimensional. That gets tossed around a lot lately. I don't know what the hell's going on, but interdimensional beings and all these other these terms, like there's different, obviously 3D, 4D. It's like a different level to me, like in a video game. You know what I'm saying? Like it's almost
Yeah.
like we're on the third level. Now this game up here is on a different level. You got to complete this one to get to the next level, the next stage.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
claim like the astral plane. People can project out. You travel through that. You're transversing. To me, it's almost. It seems very simulated.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. I feel that way at times. Even biblically, like uh like they say if God ever forgot about you, you disappear in an instant. Like we are just we are his creation, like maybe not flesh and blood even, as well, I don't know if that's the right word, but we're energy and vibration, no two atoms touch each other.
What
It's
if God, the great creator, is the one that created this simulation we're in, and that's why we call him God, because he created the simulation.
yeah. Yeah,
I say he, but it, whatever it is.
right.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how everyone just automatically calls, God, he. I've always wondered about that one myself.
Yeah.
Everybody has said he, I think, because even through old times, the men were always considered the main thing. If you go through all the stories and all the things, as bad as it is, but women didn't mean anything hundreds of years ago. A lot of
Yeah.
them, a lot of them, even in our country, if you believe the history, they could even vote till what, the 1920s? Was that what it was? I don't remember. That's a,
Yeah. Women's suffrage, I think it was the late teens.
yeah,
Yeah, crazy to think about.
Yeah.
But then again, is that all made up?
yeah.
Yeah. Well, the Illuminati took credit for the women's suffrage movement because they saw half of the world's population that wasn't
Taxed.
taxed. Yeah.
That's what always got my goat with this country. We left England and the Boston Tea Party and all this other stuff that they tell us was because we didn't want to have to pay taxes, this and that, and now look where we're at.
Yeah. I mean, it's an abomination.
Yeah.
I said if
Yeah.
the founding fathers knew what was going to happen, they'd have rolled over in their graves had they really been good people.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Well, then, yeah, we had a revolution over a simple little tea tax. But if you add up all your taxes that you're paying today, a lot of the taxes included in the price of something. You go buy a bottle of alcohol or a pack of cigarettes or a gallon of gas. The alcohol or the gas tax is already written into the price. And then on a lot of those products, you got to pay a sales tax on top of that.
Yeah.
So like over half of the cost of some of the stuff that we buy is all taxes. It's just hidden into the overall price.
Yeah.
I know that my last check that I got, and it had extra hours because where I work at, if I don't use all of we get bonus vacation and we get sick time. I didn't use any of my sick time, so they pay you out for it. So I had an extra 40 hours on top of my normal 2 weeks pay. So I knew I was going to get it stuck to me in the tax department, but they took out a hell of a lot of taxes on it. I was like, man,
Yeah.
it's over 25% of my paycheck went to taxes.
Yeah. Here's an extra $200. Thanks for the donation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's messed up.
I've never understood either. Again, this isn't me trying to sound like a bitch, but it is a little bit of a gripe. I've never understood the people that don't pay much taxes at all, but they have kids, and somehow they manage to get back thousands upon thousands of dollars when they didn't even put hardly anything into taxes. How's
Yeah.
that work?
Yeah, I think it's all part of that what is it?
Well, it's definitely a form of class warfare. They're trying to get, the people that go out there and make a good living, they're trying to get them pissed off at the poor for the poor, taking part of their paycheck. It's a forced form of socialism in a way. And you always want to keep the poor poor so that they're always envious and looking at the upper class people in their society as the bad ones, that they're taking away from my potential of making a good living. There's definitely a whole lot of class warfare.
It's to
involved in it.
cause divide and to create negative vibrations, low vibrations and frequencies.
Yeah, for sure. And
Because
sometimes I think they just do it I'm drawing a blank on the word I'm looking for, but it's just basically a campaign to bring us down, like look what we're doing to you and you can't do a thing about it.
the thing that I was going to talk about, I'll just throw this out here. How familiar are you guys with where the Jewish religion came from? How it originally originated? Because this could be completely proven wrong right off the bat.
Not super well. It depends on what you're talking about, as far as because there's Semites, there's people
The Canaanites.
the Canaanites.
Are you familiar with them?
Yeah,
Where did the Canaanites originate from?
they're from the bloodline of Cain. So Cain killed Abel, and then all of his progeny were evil people, and then they actually interbred with the fallen angels, the Watchers,
Yeah.
and
See,
then that's why God had to flood the earth.
so you're not too far from where this is going. From what this person had posted, they had this big long. I wish I would have saved it. You can't really save stuff on Reddit. Uh, of why the Jewish people, not all Jewish people, but like obviously the Rockefellers or whoever, the descendants of these, they claim they're the descendants of the Canaanites, and Cain was the first murderer, the first real sinner, and he was in like Eve was influenced by a serpent. And this is going on the woo woo side. Um, the devil they reference as a serpent sometimes, and they are basically saying that the descendants of the Canaanites and everything else were descendants of reptilians. That's because the serpent, the reptilians, they feed on negative energy. That's why all these people have the bloodlines from the Nephilim, obviously the fallen angels, the whatever you want to call the interbreeding with the Canaanites. They think these were actually the fallen angels were these reptilian things. Is that true? I have no idea. It's an out there theory. But they
Yeah.
claim they feed on negative energy, the low vibrations. That's why they cause discourse throughout the world. That's why there's always wars. That's why they're always funding this stuff. That's why they're causing civil unrest, because those hatred vibrations is what they feed on.
Yeah. I think Robert Monroe called it what did he call it? Luge jacking. Basically that very similar thing, that they were feeding on the negative vibrations of people. And to that theory, you could also look at the term blue bloods.
Mhm.
The blue bloods, almost all of these people are uh, Rh negative. They have a special blood type. I think only 15% of the whole world has Rh negative blood.
Or type O negative.
No, just Rh negative.
I read a little bit about the type O negative being in there too. Well, all negative blood types supposedly didn't exist until about 3,500 years ago, which really contradicts the mainstream timeline of history.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
I thought it was typo negative. It was supposed to be like the rarest of rare.
type O negative is the universal donor. I think AB
Okay.
negative is the
Okay.
rarest.
For some
And
reason, I thought it was typo negative. Maybe that's because I'm just thinking of that old band.
yeah,
Oh, they're
that's a good
badass.
band.
No,
Yeah.
no,
But
it is AB negative. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I knew it was something like that.
yeah. But just that negative factor on blood, only 15% of the whole world, whether it's A negative, B negative, AB negative, O negative, only 15% of the whole world has a negative Rh factor. And all of these blue bloods have it. So like you can go online and find, like Prince Charles
Mm-hmm.
has a Rh negative, his son Andrew has Rh negative. Famous people all throughout history are all Rh negative, and that would kind of lend some credence to that theory, whether it's reptilians or whatever. It came from somewhere and they really don't know where.
I've often wondered if what they call reptilians aren't aliens to the extent, again, like the whole fallen angel thing. Well, they came from the sky. I've wondered if they're not. And they claim they live. That's the theory about Antarctica. I've heard like, oh, there's reptilians live. Like they're a species of reptiles. They would need heat if they're quote unquote reptiles. Again, who the hell knows what any of this is, if it's even true. It's like I said, it's kind of out there. But if something like this were to exist, that's where this whole cabal thing comes from. They claim that whoever runs this cabal are these eating children, drinking children's blood, reptiles, draconian. Like there's so much stuff, and it's like it's some woo woo shit for real. But if you look back at it, I was like, and I'm not saying that literally every Jewish person has that, like you're saying, the blood type, but whoever were the original ones is where the descent comes from. You know what I mean? Like the bloodline from the original Canaanites.
Yeah.
They're the ones
Yeah.
that were supposedly like intermingled with the fallen angels, the reptiles, whatever. Like it's like I said, I don't know. It's someone posted it on there, and I've scratched my head for a little bit. I was like, you know what? Kind of makes sense if you want to go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah. Yeah. And people got this idea of angels as being, this winged, beautiful light being or something like that. But
They're like feathered with a bunch of eyeballs.
yeah. But some of the descriptions are, 32 eyes and scales and sharp teeth and, not necessarily like a beautiful, like that's their true form.
Mm. I've always
Well,
thought
and
one of the great misconceptions is the depiction of Jesus. Everyone that sees pictures of Jesus these days, what does he look like? A long-haired, long-beard white guy. It's like Jesus wouldn't be a white person. Like back in those days, he'd look like more Jewish, Middle Eastern. Like,
I
Yeah.
actually have a really religious buddy of mine who took a trip over to Israel, Jerusalem specifically, and he went with a rabbi, a priest, and a religious scholar who was a religious professor at a college. A very interesting group of people to go to Jerusalem with. I'd be interested in that. But this guy he gets back and he comes running to me first thing in the morning. I worked with this guy. He's like, "Hey, Freddie, you're never going to believe this. Did you know that Jesus was not white?" And I just started laughing. I'm like, "No shit, bro. He was born in the Middle East." Like, no, yeah, the Catholic painting of Jesus is not right.
Yeah. Another funny thing is when I was in Iraq, there's some Muslim holidays where I don't know if they consider them prophets or whatever, but it's the same picture. And it's not Jesus, it's a Muslim prophet, but it's the exact same picture.
I always thought if there was ever an Antichrist, what was he going to come back and look like? Probably the picture of what we drew of Jesus.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
everyone says Jesus is returning.
Yeah.
And what better way to come back is if it looked just like Jesus, or what
Yeah.
everyone's in their mind thinks Jesus actually looks like, even though that's clearly not what he would have looked like if he existed.
Right.
Well, and I've always had this question, does Rasputin look like Jesus or does Jesus look like Rasputin?
I don't know who that is.
That's what I
Oh,
was. I know the name, but I don't think I've ever seen a picture.
he was a Russian prophet, yeah, back in the early 1900s. But he was like a personal counsel to the Russian czars before the Bolshevik revolution took them out.
And that's what he looks like.
Yeah, he looks just like Jesus.
Huh.
Are you guys familiar with the whole Nasara thing?
No.
No.
I don't. It's like I think it's Nesara. It's what became, and I don't want to quote myself on my own conspiracy theories here, but I think it was originally what was out there before Q Anon came into play.
Oh,
And that's another like a nut thing in my opinion too. Like talked about on one of my recent episodes. Like, and I don't know what you guys fall into when it comes to stuff like that either, but like the Nasara, however you want to pronounce it, they had someone picked out as the false prophet, and there was a name. I remember this. Remember, it was pretty much I think 2004, 2005. I'd seen it. I was reading all into this stuff, there was a guy from the Middle East. He looked just like Jesus. They had a name. They said he's going to start performing miracles, and don't believe it. It's not really him. This, and that. Well, here we are almost 20 years later. It never happened. And
Yeah.
then now all those same people have found the real savior, and it ends up being the orange guy. And I'm like, what? And then a lot of the same things they talked about, this evil cabal, and also it's still in play and how they're supposed to be uprising, getting rid of all the stuff. Like it's the same thing I read 20 years ago. It's just a new name
Yeah.
with a different savior. Like
Yeah. I tend to believe Q was AI, maybe like a AI psyop.
I said that too, but I've wondered if it's not possible that it was literally just some neckbeard kid that was screwing around on the internet one day and it just took off.
It could be.
Yeah.
But I mean, they got a lot of stuff right. So I think,
Well, you got to have a little bit of truth in there to make it believable.
yeah, but I'm just saying he would have had to have a level of knowledge beyond the
I don't
average.
think that actually took off until right after the whole Julian Assange and WikiLeaks thing took off. And I think he got his information from WikiLeaks
Yeah.
and then spread it from there. And
Yeah.
then I don't know. I don't know how the guy that is supposed to be the savior says a lot of things he says. Well, he's not supposed to be perfect. Well,
The
I just
savior.
I don't see how a billionaire as part of the good old boys club is here to save us from the rest of the elite. Wasn't he
Yeah.
like buddies with them?
Yeah. You're right. I mean, that's what this conspiracy stuff is about is educating people so you can recognize this stuff coming, and nobody's coming to save you. And it sure as hell isn't Trump.
I thought a lot about this, and I wonder if some people don't make conspiracies just to discredit the people that actually look through conspiracies, looking for truth. Like the ones that have truth behind them, no one's going to believe them because there's other conspiracy theory people out there that believe in the ridiculous stuff.
Yeah. Well,
So
like the Q thing was talking a lot about child trafficking. Um and then a bunch of other crazy shit. Well, they they basically shut everybody down with the Q thing, and then stop looking at the child trafficking.
yeah,
And we all know that's going on, or has gone on. I mean, it's still going on. But Jeffrey Epstein, um I mean, that there's nothing to argue about. I mean, they were compromising officials with underage girls and boys and stuff, and they were doing sick shit on an island or a ranch. So that stuff was real, but then they basically just discredited people that were believers in that stuff, with a few little nuggets of dumb shit in there.
Well,
yeah.
and there was a illegitimate Rothschild, kind of at the center of that Pizzagate stuff there in the beginning. The James
Mhm.
Pontus, and
He's the one that had connection to the pizza place, didn't he?
yes, Comet Ping Pong there in Washington, D.C. Yeah, that this guy has all kinds of like newspaper interviews and stuff talking about his basement. That's where he keeps all those extra, tomato sauce and all this stuff. But then when Pizzagate happened, he has no basement.
Yeah.
And then the little CIA crony or black op guy that they got to go shoot up this pizza place, ironically, only fires one bullet into the pizza parlor, and it happens to go into the main drive, the main computer in there.
Yeah.
And it just the whole story is freaking bullshit.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
like the people that question the Clintons or whatever mysteriously decide to
tap themselves in the back of
yeah
their head.
yeah they tend to take 2 rounds to the back of the head, Boondock Saint style.
Yeah. Well, Alan Dershowitz, that was Epstein's lawyer. He's been coming out recently saying, "Hey, you guys need to look at Lady Rothschild because she's the one who was introducing all of these people to Epstein."
Mm-hmm. I've seen something about that recently.
Yeah,
Lynn Forrester D. Rothschild.
yeah, the one who's real, real, real good buddies with Hillary.
Yeah, I got some dirt on her.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the the Rothschilds are definitely like well intertwined with this whole thing. Um, Another little nugget I don't know if you knew is we just found this out recently. So Ghislaine Maxwell, her father was Robert Maxwell, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he 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 was an asset with the CIA, British MI6, and Israeli Mossad, but also he was at least a part owner in McGraw-Hill textbooks. So he's been so we have intelligence assets in charge of making our children's educational books. Well, I don't know if they still use McGraw-Hill, but I did when I was a kid.
I did too.
I don't know if they even use books anymore because my kids don't even have books. Everything's on a tablet.
Yeah. That's even easier to manipulate now, I guess, but uh, I just thought it was kind of an interesting little tidbit that this this intelligence agent who used his own child as a sex kitten was in charge of educational textbooks.
Now, do you know offhand? I don't remember if it's Prescott Bush or whatever. This was not George W., but his dad's dad.
Yeah, Prescott. Yeah,
Now, I've read somewhere before that he was somehow connected into with the CIA, and he also had connections to the Rothschilds.
yeah. He started the CIA, I believe, didn't he?
He was involved in it with Alan Dulles, and yeah, the CIA was kind of born around the same time that the United Nations and the founding of the state of Israel. It all came up right after World War II. Yeah, the not Germany lost the war, the Nazis didn't. The Nazis just spread all throughout the earth through Project Paperclip, and then all of a sudden we got UFOs and Foo Fighters flying all over. We got the creation of the CIA. Yeah, you get the birth of the modern state of Israel and Mossad, and well, the English have always had their hand, you know, deeply in these world affairs, and yeah, the Rothschilds are behind that. There's one saying that I just got to get out there that this is what the Rothschilds think of even the British royalty. So this was a quote from Nathan shortly after the wars with France, which made him extremely freaking rich after the Battle of Waterloo. But he said, "I care not what puppet is placed upon the throne of England to rule the empire on which the sun never sets. The man who controls Britain's money supply controls the British Empire, and I control the British money supply." So yeah, they control the freaking crown. They're usually the asset managers and financiers of the Vatican. They're behind everything. But
Yeah. Well, even the Balfour Declaration, uh, that was that was basically the British Empire handing off Palestine to the Rothschilds. And basically what the Rothschilds did in order to earn their place in Palestine was get America involved in World War One. So it was like a quid pro quo. You get America to come over here and help us kick these guys' asses, and we'll give you Palestine, which wasn't theirs to give. And Jacob Rothschild, I don't know if he's still alive, but he would brag off and on about how his family created Israel. So, I mean, the Zionist movement goes back much, much further than 1947 or whatever. I mean, that's been in place since,
At least the mid 1800s.
yeah.
Do you happen to know the reasonings as to why, like for World War II, obviously the Holocaust and all that? Do you know why they were specifically targeted by the Nazis?
Well, I got probably an unpopular opinion about that. Like, do I think a lot of them were killed or whatever, but I think a lot of it was also to take the heat off of the United States for bombing the shit out of Japan. Like nobody knew that there was anything going on with the Jews during World War II. It was only at the very end that anybody had any idea that this stuff was going on. So I
Hmm.
tend to believe maybe 6 million might not be a real number, but that's anti-Semitic to say that. So it was 6 million.
Well, and I heard a pro-Semitic argument to that is that the Jewish people are actually Satan's synagogue in the book of Revelations, and they needed to preserve those people to be able to carry out the book of Revelations in the future. So Nazi Germany's ultimate goal was to get as many Jews out of Europe during the war as possible so that they could preserve that bloodline.
Yeah. And there's kind of been a perversion along the way sometime in history, like when most people think of Jews, they think of God's chosen people, Israelites, but most most of these Zionists have nothing to do with Israel, but they kind of took it over with that Zionist uh, exodus or whatever they called it when they took it back over.
The thing
But
that I was reading, and again, not my opinion, not your guys' opinion. So for any censors out there, this is just something that someone else said. So they thought the reasons they were going after them was about kind of what I led to earlier, that they were considered the descendants of evil, and that's why they had to rid the world of evil. I was like,
yeah,
that sounds very awful, but
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
that was supposedly the mindset. They thought they were ridding the world of the evil demon people.
yeah. And yeah, it's really hard to know if they thought they were doing, I'm not condoning killing anybody,
No, not at all.
but the Khazarian Empire was like described as being like this really evil place, like full of debauchery and basically, well, who was it? The Russian czars said
Yeah.
said basically like they had a pretty strong hold. Like I think Kiev was actually their main city, which is this Ukraine area where everybody's fighting now. So we got fights going on where Khazar used to be, or Khazaria, and then we have fights going on in Israel. And this these Khazarians were said to be like really evil, stealing people's identities, murdering people. They controlled part of the Silk Road early. Uh, what was it like the 100s, 200s AD, and eventually, like they fought the Persians fought them. A lot of people tried to fight them, and they got their asses kicked. And then finally, I think the Rus, which is modern Russia, kind of kind of got the upper hand on him and said, "Hey, you guys are doing all this evil shit." I think they were worshiping Baal and all of these evil deities, and they told them, "You got to pick one of the three Abrahamic religions," and they chose Judaism. And then there's some people that say that that once they finally did get kicked out of there, that they became the Ashkenazi Jews, and then some of them were, the upper echelon that became these world banking families. So, I mean, if you believe that these were evil people who just pretended to be Jews, then maybe that's what they thought they were doing. I don't pretend to know what Hitler was up to.
No, I don't agree with anything that causes a genocide of anyone. So
Yeah.
even with modern times, the stuff going on and everything else everywhere, like I don't believe in just killing people.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't I'm not very knowledgeable on the whole World War II Nazi regime. I was not a fan of Nazis, so don't
Yeah.
Well, and
no one out there listening think that anyone on here supporting that movement or anything about that. It's terrible stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
and one really interesting rumor that I've heard out there is Hitler himself is an illegitimate Rothschild baby. Now, whether that's true or not, none of us will ever know. The fake skeleton that they, say they got from him when he supposedly killed himself in Germany has been proven to not even be his real skeleton. A lot of people say he escaped with a bunch of other Nazis to South America. So
Yeah.
we don't really know. But
I assume that's true. Just even to throw a modern spin on that, same thing that happened with Osama bin Laden.
Yeah. Yeah.
We
Yeah.
got him. Where's the body? Oh, we dumped him at sea.
Yeah.
What?
That was convenient.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. The skeleton that the Russians had that they said was Hitler has been DNA tested, and they said it's a woman.
yeah.
So it's definitely not Hitler.
I
But
thought
yeah,
it was strange that we go right from World War II into the Cold War with Russia. We were allies. Russia lost so many more people, and then now even today we're still not on great terms with Russia here in this country.
Yeah. And I think that's those major players, you can't let too much power coalesce in any one place. To me, it feels like maybe America and Russia are on the list next. Um, America for sure. It feels like they're trying to take America down.
well, if you read The Secret Destiny of America, a book by Manly P. Hall, he lays it out in there that Columbus, what he was fake. They already knew about America. They were saving it to carry out the end times in the Bible. That they wanted to scientifically carry out the book of Revelations to bring about their one world order, which it's just creepy that this guy, Manly P. Hall, who was writing these books in the very early 1900s, is almost spot on when it comes to the events in the world that are playing out today. Like, this has been a plan long in the making, and unfortunately, I do think America is probably going. They're going to try to make us fall. So yeah,
Yeah.
we need to stand together. And now I don't believe in our government, but I do believe in the American dream. We can put our differences aside. We got to get over the divide and conquer part of it because that's the whole name of the game. I've studied the Hegelian dialectic a lot. It's kind of confusing, but not really. I mean, just the name of the game is, create two sides to everything and control the narrative of both sides. That way, no matter who wins, you're the winner.
Yeah.
So the people that are orchestrating these events, they have this path covered, that path covered. Yeah, and yeah, the name of the game is just to get us to fight against each other so that we are not strong enough to stand together. If we unite and stand together against this evil, we will be able to defeat them, and they know that. So that's their number one play is just divide and conquer.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even to the minutia level, I mean, this BLM riots and stuff like that. They're like, oh, mostly peaceful and stuff's on fire, but then you get some people in there with cameras and it's some white dude wearing a ski mask freaking throwing bricks through windows and lighting shit on fire. Like, what the hell is this? That doesn't look like a BLM protester.
Well, and I find it interesting that Black Lives Matters used to have the name Black Lives Matter too,
Yeah.
and they got rid of the two part.
Yeah.
So that kind of changed it from an all-inclusive thing where, hey, yo, we also matter to we are the only ones that matter.
Yeah.
So they did that on purpose. It's another divide and conquer tactic.
Yeah. Yeah. These guys, and I mean, if you dig into all of these powerful families, they've had their eye on the ball for thousands of years. I mean, the Rothschilds, these Orsinis, like all these powerful Italian families, they go back so far.
We did not say that name.
Oh, yeah.
The Assinis?
Yeah. I mean, this has been in the works for at least, at least since 100 years after Christ.
Yeah.
At a minimum. So, I mean, they're organized and they,
Well, in a biblical sense, it would be ever since Eve took the bite from that apple.
yeah, it could be. I mean, there's all this weird stuff with these bloodlines, I mean, I think Queen Elizabeth said that she was related to Jesus
And Mohammed.
and Muhammad, yeah. Like all of these prophets are in their bloodlines, allegedly. It's weird stuff.
Yeah.
You guys had mentioned, completely off topic, but kind of goes in a little bit here, the whole flat earth concept. If you buy into flat earth and you think there's more land that we're not aware of, like obviously the theory is there's an ice wall and this and that, there's more land on the other side of the wall. If that's a true thing and these superpowers know about it, that's why they're trying to keep it from everyone. Why are they so worried about what we're doing here if there's so much more on the other side? I've never understood that. Like that's a lot of the reasoning that a lot of flat earthers say is, oh, the elite's trying to keep the rest of the lands hidden from us. What are they doing with them? Like,
Yeah.
that's what it doesn't make sense to me. Like, that's the few things we're always question when it comes back to that, just because if there's so much more land and they want to keep us all here and not have any access to the other land, okay, well, what's over there? And that's where the whole extraterrestrial thing comes from.
Yeah.
There's extraterrestrial, there's extra land. That's where these beings are from. They're from the extra land. I was like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting topic. I mean, couldn't they just put it to bed by letting everybody see what's over there? We're supposed to believe that there's this world treaty. Everybody's has got a stake in Antarctica because they all care about the ice cores so much or something. It doesn't add up in my brain. There's something weird going on with Antarctica.
Yeah, we mentioned this a little bit on that live stream last night that I'm going to do an Antarctica episode at some point. I got to find someone that knows a lot of information about Antarctica, and I want to dive into Antarctica on an episode. I've said that since I've started the podcast, because that's one of the reasons I wanted to do the podcast, because Antarctica has always been one of those question marks to me as why they're so secretive about Antarctica.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. Well, you seen that guy that I think he worked for, who is that?
Oh, the Raytheon.
Raytheon, yeah. He worked for Raytheon, and he's been making the rounds on podcasts talking about stuff that he's seen over there.
Direct energy weapons and the ability to make an earthquake go off anywhere in the world from Antarctica. He is an interesting guy.
Yeah.
I'll have to look him up, see if I can get him on here.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Me
think it
being,
was on Sean Ryan or something like that.
I'm a little skeptical on a lot of things, and even like some of the things when I have guests on here, I'm a skeptic in general,
Yeah.
and I don't feel like, and not to just maybe the guy's 100% truthful, but I feel like if you did all this stuff and they knew you're out spreading that information around, they wouldn't allow you to get out there to spread that information. I feel like if this stuff's so secretive and they let someone leave, they're not really just going to let you leave. Maybe that's
Yeah.
just me being morbid, but I feel like anyone that has any sort of knowledge of stuff that they don't want out there, they're not going to allow them to leave.
Yeah. I kind of feel the same way about like Bob Lazar. Like maybe they let him see a couple of things or something like that. They they might let him see something that they want him to run his mouth about or something to that effect. But yeah, I'm in the same boat. Like they can disappear people pretty easily.
The
I
thing with
mean,
Bob Lazar, like I felt like I've watched the recent stuff with him, and a lot of the stuff he said is somewhat came true. Like obviously Element, what was it, 115 or something like that he talked about
Yes.
back in the 80s. Now it's a real thing.
yeah,
He had knowledge of certain things,
yeah,
but he is even went on, he's never said that I don't think he ever said he saw any like actual bodies of any type of creatures that I'm aware of. If he did, then I'm misquoting, but I thought he only saw like the technology that he had in that one little area of S4.
yeah. That's what I understand. He saw that the uh drive system basically
It was
said
like
it
an
was,
anti-gravity drive system.
yeah, size of a basketball or something like that.
Yeah, and he found out that like it killed the guy before him.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
that
And they could maybe want something like that out there as a psyop, or you never know when they're trying to make you look here and doing stuff over there.
I don't know if it's because he eventually said something publicly on TV, and that's the only reason they didn't do anything because he had already said it on TV. But
Yeah,
he's still alive, and he's still a pharmacist or whatever it is. So he was legitimate of something. So it doesn't make any sense as to why he would still be able to do the things he does now if he wasn't somewhat legit. And then I don't know, like the whole
yeah,
Bob Lazar thing's always been interesting to me as well because I want to believe the guy because he seems like he's not out for money. He wasn't hitting up all these UFO conventions or anything. He just said what happened and he disappeared for a while and did his own thing and still does his own thing. And he only came back out recently because of that Jeremy Corbell guy.
yeah, yeah. It's pretty interesting. It, but I do feel like the intelligence outfits let people see some stuff and stuff that they want out there. For all we know, it could have been something along the lines of seeding, like Project Bluebeam type stuff. Getting people to believe in that.
I've been asked recently if I want to be on a different podcast, talk about Bluebeam. I was like, I'm not an expert, but I know some things. I'll talk about it. It's like,
Yeah,
so
You could refer them my way. I love Project Bluebeam, and I'm pretty knowledgeable about it. I love it. I would go on anyone's podcast to talk about Project Bluebeam.
well, I can refer you to them here once we get done with this. You can give me a email. I talked to the guy through Reddit, so I'll if you have a Reddit account, I can get you in contact with him or get you an email address to get a hold of him.
Okay, sounds good.
I think you guys should do it together.
Yeah. I don't know. It is interesting. When it came out in 1994, yeah, taking a look at what's involved in Project Bluebeam, it just sounds it's so far out there that H.G. Wells couldn't even write a freaking a sci-fi book to compare with it. But now I look at all the stuff that's in there, and holy freaking cow, a lot of it is a very real possibility now.
What do you think about these aliens in the Miami Mall?
Oh, that I just found that comical. That was just entertainment for me. Like,
Some people are saying it was Bluebeam, and then I know some people are getting all mad that people are using Bluebeam as an excuse for everything. They don't want to accept the truth that these Nephilim aliens are out here. I was like, I mean, if they are, they are. If they're not, they're not. I was like, I could see it being another them testing shit out. There's too much going on right now with this UAP, and then all of a sudden they're calling them interdimensionals, and I feel like it's leading up to something. They're preparing us for something, and I don't know if it is an election year.
Yeah.
So some
Yeah.
shit always goes down in an election year. So if I guess an alien race comes down to start fucking with us, then so be it.
Well, and they're slowly leaking out disclosure. Like a few years back, so many millions of pages were released that, they've admitted to Area 51 existing now. And it's just this slow drip leak that is coming to full disclosure. And I think we're going to see some kind of, full on disclosure of this whole alien agenda. It will be to their narrative. So I don't think the whole thing is going to be true. Don't ever believe what the government tells you, but just the fact that they're starting to hint towards the existence of these, outer space aliens, the whole thing's really fishy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't ever trust your government.
Well, like that major that was flying that, I think it was a F-18 and caught the Tic Tac, and he's made the rounds and all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm. I can't think what his name is, but I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. Well, they had just upgraded their FLIR like right before that. So nobody was seeing these things. Then they get a software update, and then everybody's seeing Tic Tacs, So
Yeah. Someone was
I'm
saying
co-
that was someone's afterburners or something.
Oh, really?
I saw something recently saying that they were recording someone's heat signatures from their afterburn when they upgraded their FLIR system. It was picking up things they weren't used to seeing, so they were seeing another plane's afterburner. I'm like, you would notice the difference between a plane, and it was still doing things that normal planes weren't doing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that was someone just trying to discredit everything, because there's a lot of people out there. Oh, we spread misinformation, we spread disinformation. I was like, I think there's a lot of people out there spreading bullshit just to discredit people.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it was an afterburner, but a possibility could be, like what they're capable of with these deep fakes and with filters, just superimposing something on his, I don't think he's a liar. I think he saw what he said he saw, but
They claim that's only like a small piece of the footage too. There's a lot of other things on there that they've only released a small amount publicly.
yeah. Yeah, it's pretty crazy, but I definitely don't see there being, unless we're talking about some major technology that we know nothing about,
Have you
being
seen
anything biological in there.
have you seen the latest the three orbs supposedly that you remember the Malaysian flight MH
Oh yeah, yeah.
Have you
Yeah.
seen the videos of these, supposedly the thermal image and then the satellite image of the three orbs that made the plane disappear?
Yeah. That's pretty crazy footage, that's for sure.
I don't know if it's real or not. I know the guy I don't know him, but I know I've been trying to follow his stuff here and there. He's
Yeah.
trying to piece it all together.
Yeah.
And then
I
I went down the rabbit hole of getting on a Reddit. There were so many bots on there trying to disprove it and everything. Anytime someone says anything, they're instantly being attacked and downvoted. I was like, for something that's one guy trying to prove something, there's sure a hell of a lot of people, quote unquote, trying to disprove him.
yeah.
I've never
Yeah.
seen that with any conspiracies. There's so many conspiracies out there, but for some reason, this single one is a hot topic right now, getting so many people negative against him.
Yeah. I thought an Air Force guy got in major trouble for leaking like the satellite.
Supposedly, he'd gotten in trouble prior to ever releasing that. I thought they
Oh,
said he was being in trouble before that event ever happened.
oh, okay.
And again, I read that on Reddit. I don't know if that's true.
Yeah.
But that guy's supposed to be the one that leaked this stuff, and he's been court-martialed or whatever. And then someone said he was actually court-martialed before the airplane ever disappeared.
Mm.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't want to be out here spreading any misinformation. I'm just going by what some random bot discreditor on Reddit said.
Yeah. Yeah. Freddy's got to step away to use the restroom real quick. But yeah, I mean, I think Greg Reese uh, released a video with all of that footage on there. I'm sure you've seen it all, but if anybody hasn't seen it, look it up. I mean, it is some crazy stuff, like I don't believe anything anymore at face value just because of, the deep fakes that they're capable of.
Yeah.
But it is intriguing for sure.
No, when I first saw it, I was like, that don't look real. But then the more I've looked into it, I was like, if it is CGI, they did a really good job.
Yeah.
And the fact that no one's taking credit for it and everyone's like, oh, I've proved it. I've just proved it. But any of the disproving videos I've seen don't match.
Yeah.
So I don't know who made the original video. And if it's, I don't believe this Ashton guy, the one that's been out pushing it or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't think he made it,
Right.
but I'm wondering where he got it. Like, where the hell
Yeah.
did it come from?
Well, I haven't heard the government say that it's not, that it's not theirs. So
Mhm.
if you have like multiple government assets looking at it, it's because they expect something to happen.
Yeah.
So I mean, if that footage really did come from government satellites and thermal imaging, it's
Why were they looking at it in the first place?
exactly. Yeah.
Like, why was there a drone with thermal out there, and why was the satellite over that? Like, clearly they were testing something.
Yeah. And if it's not a deep fake, then it almost has to be military because no you're not getting that kind of footage off of a toy drone. We're talking about predators and stuff.
Mm-hmm. No,
Like,
I 100% believe if it was real, the U.S. government's somehow involved with it.
yeah,
For what reasoning, I have no idea.
yeah. Maybe it's that De Glock thing, there's a lot of people who think that World War II was about us getting their technology and the events after World War II, like Operation Paperclip, would maybe lend credence to that. I mean, what's his name? Van,
Werner von Braun.
yeah, Werner von Braun. We bring him over, put him in charge of NASA, kind of overlooked the fact that he was hanging Jews out in front of his factory in Germany, you know, like he didn't want to be a Nazi, but
No, not at all. He sure knows
he
about
seemed to
rockets,
enjoy it
though.
while he was there. Yeah.
We can
Yeah.
forgive all the tragedies you caused just as long as you help build us a rocket ship.
Yeah. Yeah, and they look the other way with all of those guys that they brought over. But
That's that's the dark side of the, I don't know what the term to use, of what happened after the war. Like, again, you mentioned it earlier, they didn't stop the Nazis, they just spread out.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And I mean that World War I, the Rockefellers drug us into that, us being the United States. World War II, United States didn't want anything to do with that either. And then you have provocations coming from the United States towards Japan. And then they group up these battleships in Pearl Harbor, don't put up any barrage balloons. And then they know that they have a Japanese asset on Hawaii transmitting locations to the Japanese. That Pearl Harbor was just a setup, and
They needed a way into the war.
yeah, exactly. And when you start to look at all of these wars, they're almost all false flags. The Gulf
Same
of Tonkin never happened.
with Vietnam. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, every single war we've been in has been somebody getting us into that. And it's not, it's never what they tell us it is.
The war on terror.
Yeah. Yeah. We're looking for WMDs. we're gonna invade two different sovereign countries than any other countries of the people who quote
I've
unquote.
still yet to ever hear why Building 7 collapsed in the same exact manner as the two towers, like so many hours later.
Yeah. There's so much stuff around that. It's pretty hard to believe that that wasn't a false flag.
I've said from when it happened, and everyone says I was anti-patriotic and how dare I question things. And I was like, literally, I've watched all this happening on TV because for whatever reason this happened. I was in my senior year of high school and they made us watch it. And every class I went to, we had to watch the television. And why we all needed to watch what was going on, I felt like we were forced to do that just so we had that memory in our brains. But you can find videos, which you can't do it anymore on certain things because for some reason the internet's being scrubbed.
Yeah.
Uh, but you used to be able to find videos. You could see floors exploding prior to it collapsing. Like it was almost like a controlled demolition.
Yeah. And I haven't seen the video myself, but I heard somebody mention that there's a video of the nose cone of one of the aircraft coming out the other side of the building.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that one either.
Yeah.
I've
Well,
said
they
I've
said
said
it
this
came through
before.
intact.
Yeah, I don't know about that. But I've said this before when it came to the Pentagon. I was like, the day before, I think it was Rumsfeld or whoever it was being questioned about where $2.7 trillion in Pentagon funding was. And conveniently, the very next day, a quote unquote plane hit the area where all those files to trace where that money went into those computers was hit and completely obliterated the plane to where it was disintegrated. No trace of the plane, but only did mild damage to the Pentagon in that one specific area of where all the computers were that kept track of the budget.
Yeah. And there was a lot of money changing hands the day before in the stock exchange, and the SEC was looking into it, and then they magically lost all the documents.
Mm-hmm.
So a bunch of rich people got rich right before that.
And that's
then,
one of the big reasons why they had to bring down Building 7. Yeah, that one had to come down because they had tons and tons of financial records in there as well.
there
Yeah.
was a big insurance policy too by the guy that was leasing those towers as well, like billions of dollars in insurance money. And
Yeah.
conveniently, part of the plan that he invoked on his insurance is he wanted to have terrorists on there, plane attacks. And that was all
Yeah.
done, I think, in July. So I was like, well, I was like, that's a convenient thing that he wanted to make sure he had this insurance on his lease properties so he could come out. I forget how much he spent, but he came out with like 7 billion or 4.7 billion or something, which
Yeah.
in today's times don't really seem like a whole lot, but I guess 20 something years ago, that was a lot more than what it is in today's standards.
Yeah.
But no, he profited quite a bit from those being brought down.
Yeah. And there's some guys that are like really, really well versed in that stuff, like numerology. Um, there's so much stuff. Like I think they brought it down like 100 years after, was it? I don't know.
I don't have my 9/11 notes with me, but I've got pages and pages and pages of notes. The links to the Solomon Company. There's the name Solomon again, and
Mm-hmm.
supposedly the Illuminati has like this Terra deck that with a bunch of different cards, and there's two burning towers is one of their cards in this weird Illuminati tarot deck, and
Yeah.
yeah, just all the numerology around it is just wacky. A recent rabbit hole that I've started to go down is yeah, forget Building 7. Like, what about Building 6? That's one nobody ever talks about. It was only like a 22-story building or something like that, but all four walls were all left intact. But this thing was fried from the middle downward.
Mm-hmm.
All the four walls around Building 6 were left standing. It looks a whole lot like the Hawaii fires, and I'm starting to lean towards it was some kind of direct energy weapon. I mean, those towers fell like in like 5 or 6 seconds, and the rate of free falling it takes like 8 seconds to drop a bowling ball off at the top of the those towers and have it hit the ground.
Yeah.
So they actually fell quicker than the rate of free fall. So like, how is that possible?
Yeah.
That I've seen stuff about that as well. It defies the laws of physics.
Yeah.
And I've seen tests where they've tried to use jet fuel to melt beams and it didn't work because it didn't get hot enough. The only thing that melted them was thermite. And I remember seeing something like weeks beforehand, the elevators shafts were closed in certain areas because they were having painting done conveniently in the shafting areas. Well, when you go into the elevator shaft, you had access to the original structures, like the beam structures in there.
Well, and the painting companies that were hired to do this were Israeli companies, apparently linked directly to Mossad.
Yeah. And they let him go. There was an Israeli team of Mossad agents pretending to be painters, videotaping the whole thing.
Yeah. Wasn't some of the guys trained, like supposedly the pilot? That's the biggest red flag for me is everything literally disintegrated at the Pentagon. Well, the plane that got brought down disintegrated. There's no traces left. They managed to find the passports of the guys that hijacked the plane on top of this rubble just out there for right out for anyone to find. And they knew
Yeah,
exactly
like a
who
little
did it because
cherry.
conveniently those passports are just right out there, no damage to them. Like, well,
Yeah.
boy, that's a miracle.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just nonsense. It's reminiscent of that Challenger exploding, except for one perfect picture of, I think, the Japanese guy, his family or whatever. The perfect, not a burn on it. This thing disintegrated in the air, and
Hmm.
then there's nothing left except for this picture made it through perfectly.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's kind of what I was talking about. Like these guys just throw nuggets out there for stuff like us. Like, you guys can't do shit about this.
Oh, it's like putting a needle in a haystack, blowing the haystack up with a couple sticks of dynamite out in the middle of a field, and then being able to just walk out into the field and look down and say, "Oh, hey, I found the needle."
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy.
Is astronomically impossible freaking odds for a passport to survive. Yeah, it's nuts.
Yeah,
They think we're stupid. They really do.
yeah.
The problem is
Well,
we are. There's a lot of people
yeah,
that believe it.
yeah. That's true. I mean, the average person, and sometimes I don't even I think they could look at this stuff and be like, yeah, I'm pretty comfortable. I don't even want to know this. And they know that they've just seen something that kind of destroys their narrative of their their view of the world, but then they could just kind of tune that out.
Well, it's Friedrich Nietzsche has a great quote that I just freaking love, and people don't want to hear the truth because they don't want their illusion to be destroyed. People would rather remain ignorantly bliss than know the truth.
Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
easier. The other one is it's easier to convince some uh
Convince somebody that they have been fooled than it is.
or no.
No, it's harder to convince somebody that they have been fooled than it is to fool them.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to ever admit that they were wrong.
Yeah.
No, everyone wants to think that they know everything, and what the mainstream pushes on everyone is acceptable, and we're doing exactly what we're supposed to be doing, and this is the 100% truth, and don't question it because this is the life we live, and I know everything because the TV told me so.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, well,
And
guys, I don't want to cut it
Todd,
off. We've been going on for almost 2 hours,
Yeah.
so
All right.
if you guys would like to come back, I'm sure there's so much more we can keep going on. But
Oh yeah.
I like to try and keep the episodes not too long after 2 hours, just because the videos on my hosting service like to keep things under 2 hours. Otherwise, I have to make the videos myself, and I'm lazy.
Oh yeah. Not a problem. I appreciate you having us on. And
Yep.
if any of the listeners want to learn more, keep listening to podcasts like this. Check out our podcast, Conspiracy Dumpster Dive, and just just give it a thought. Maybe it doesn't stick. Don't take any of this stuff, uh, as fact. Look into it for yourself, and you'll start to see the cracks in the narrative.
And
Mhm.
we're on most podcast platforms, iHeartRadio, Apple, and we've also added a few videos on Rumble. So if you want to see how ugly Joe is and how good looking I am, you can check us out on Rumble. And yeah, keep on listening to Tinfoil Tales. I'm always looking forward to new episodes. I'm really interested in the cryptoid stuff. Uh, I have a book, Forbidden Archaeology, and there's all kinds of evidence in there of Yetis and Bigfoots everywhere. I'm a big believer. Now, whether they're interdimensional or not, I don't know, but it's definitely something out there.
Yeah.
I 100% agree there's something out there, but I don't know what the hell they are.
Yeah.
You mentioned Rumble. I've
Yes.
been debating on switching over to Rumble too, just because certain YTs don't like the video. So I have a
Yeah.
feeling what we talked about tonight is probably going to get me kicked off there.
Yeah. We don't even attempt it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to attempt it. We'll just see what happens. So I guess if I get banned, oh well, it was worth it.
All right.
Awesome. Thanks for having us, Brandon.
Yeah.
Yep,
Thanks,
thank you
Brandon.
guys. Appreciate it. Remember, the truth lies in the stories we share, the connections we make. Stay curious, stay open minded. Thank you all for joining us on this journey. And until next time, keep questioning, keep seeking, and keep exploring the unknown. Good night, everyone.